The 4-1-2-1-2 is yet again another popular formation this year, and the reason for it is that it's so good in both the attack and the defense if you set it up correctly. In the attack, you can completely rip apart your opponent with a few passes, and in the defense, you can also be very, very hard to break through with some specific instructions. So with all that aside, guys, let's get straight into today's video. If you guys want coins for FC24, make sure you check out MMOEXP.com. Their link is down in the description. They're very fast, they're very cheap, they're very reliable, and if you use my code Rema, you can get yourself a lovely 5% discount. So for the 4-1-2-1-2, guys, on the defensive style, I have this on balance. This is because it does give you the best control over the defense. So when you want to be aggressive and press higher up on your opponent, you can do that. And then when you want to drop off and be a little bit more passive, you can also do that. So that is why I like balanced. And when I want to apply pressure, there is another setting for this, which we'll get to in a moment. You don't have to do anything to the defensive style. Moving on to the width, guys, I like to have this on 40 at the moment. The reason I've lowered it from about 45 is because I noticed there was just too many gaps through the middle, so I've lowered it to 40, so we still have decent coverage of the wide areas in case an opponent goes for an attack down the wing, but we also have a nice narrow compact defense, so it's hard for your opponent to just run right through you. Moving on to the depth, guys, if you're on the new gen consoles, the new gen versions of the game, you can have this on 71, which will basically give you this really overpowered automatic press from the AI. It will also overload the ball side, so it's very difficult for your opponent to play through you. And what it also does is it breaks your opponent's attacking AI, so it really does limit them. It's a very overpowered mechanic, which is why I said you don't need to bother having the defensive style on anything pressure related, because this setting in itself, the 71 depth, is more than enough. Very, very overpowered. If you're on the old gen version of the game, just lower this to about 60 and you will be fine. But on the new gen, this depth is really, really overpowered. Moving on to build-up play, guys, I have this on balance. This is so we can get the most varied form of build-up. With balance, you can pick and choose when and where you use each form of build-up. So if you want to build up quickly, you can do that. And then if you want to slow it down and play a bit slower, you can also do that. So it allows you to pick and choose when and where you use each form of build-up. Now, moving on to chance creation, guys, an absolute must, in my opinion, is direct passing. It's the only setting which makes your attackers move in the correct ways. When you have this on direct passing, your attacking players will make more dynamic movements. They will also bunch up against the opposition defenders, meaning it's easier to isolate a specific player and take him on in a 1v1. So direct passing, yet again, very, very important. Now, moving on to the attacking width, guys, because this is a narrow formation, I don't want to have the width too high. It wouldn't really make any sense. So we want to keep the width quite narrow, so I have this on 42. The reason I don't have this any lower is because you don't want it to be too narrow to the point where all of your players are like glued together in the middle of the pitch, because then that's not beneficial either. So you want it to be narrow, but not too narrow. Moving on to players in box, guys, we have this on 5. This is so we can get a few players into the box to finish off those chances, but we don't overcommit everybody on the team to the point where if we lose out on possession, we're not always going to get counter attacks. So 5 is perfect for me. As for corners and free kicks, these are down to preference, but I just have these on 2. This is so I can cross it if I want, or if I want to take it short, I can also do that. But again, do whatever you want with this. Sorry to interrupt the video, guys, but I have noticed around 90% of you that watch the content are not subscribed. So if you are finding any of these videos helpful, please be sure to hit that subscribe button, as it does help me out massively. Also, don't forget to drop the video a like as well. And with all that aside, guys, let's get back to the video. Now, for the player instructions, guys, I don't want you to force yourself to use specific instructions if you really don't get on with them. I'm just going to talk you through mine and why I use them in the way that I do. So starting off with the 2 strikers, on my more pacey striker, the more technical player, I have him on stay central and get in behind. This is so he can utilize his pace to get in behind and really break through the opponent's defense. We also have him on stay central, so he will always stay in the central positions where the striker should be. We don't want him drifting out into the wider areas because we don't need him to do that. We need him to be in the central position so he can help finish off our chances. We don't want him to go doolally, especially if we need to score some goals. Now, for the other striker, striker, guys, I just have him on stay central for the exact same reason as the other striker. I just also have him on mixed attack. This is just so we can get a little bit more out of him because he might lack a bit of pace. For example, this Benzema is not the quickest player in the world. I don't always want him to run in behind. Sometimes I want him to come short, hold up the play, and allow other players to make those runs. So mixed attack's really good because sometimes he'll make those runs, other times he'll just come short. And help us out in different ways. So that's why I prefer that on that striker. For the cam, guys, very, very important, but we have him on comeback on defense and get into the box across. This will make the team defend in a 4-4-2 shape, and this is very important because the 4-1-2-1-2 narrow is not a very good defensive shape. There is just way too much space down the wings for your opponent to just dominate you, basically. So by putting this cam on comeback on defense, he will come back to defend as a right midfielder in a 4-4-2 shape. Now, the reason we do this in a 4-4-2 shape is because it is a very well balanced defensive shape. You have really good coverage of both the wide and narrow areas, which means it's very difficult for your opponent to attack. If you look at this 4-1-2-1-2 specifically, you'll just see there is so much space down the wings and you're going to have a very hard time defending that. So come back on defense on this cam, very, very important. We also have him on get into the box across, so he is not hesitant to get into the penalty area and contribute in that way either. Now moving on to the right centre mid, I use a more box-to-box style player, but I still have him on stay back while attacking and cover centre. This is so I can pick and choose when I send him forward, because even though he's a box-to-box player, I don't want him to always go flying forward. I still want to be able to pick when I send him forward, which is why stay back is very, very useful. I also have him on cover centre, so he does defend as a centre mid in the 4-4-2 shape. Again, this is very important. For the CDM, guys, I have him on stay back while attacking and cover centre. This is so he doesn't go flying forward because he is a more defensive minded player, so we don't want him going forward. We also have him on cover centre for the same reason as the right centre mid. We want him to defend as a centre mid in the 4-4-2 shape. If you don't have this on and you have it on cover wing, it will mess it up a little bit. Now moving on to the left centre mid, because I said we defend in a 4-4-2 shape, you can actually get away with using an attacker in this position because this player is not actually going to have to defend as a centre mid, so you can pretty much use whoever you want in this position. I'm using the evolved Mudrick, and the instructions I have on this player are get forward, get into the box across, and most importantly, cover wing. Get forward, because he's an attacker, we do want him to fly forward. Get into the box across, he's not going to hesitate to get into that penalty area, which again is very, very useful because he is an attacking player. And then cover wing is really important because it will make this player defend as a left mid in the 4-4-2 shape. If you don't have the correct defensive positions on all four of these midfielders, it will mess it up. So the way my team will set up when we don't have the ball is the two strikers will be the same, and Kunku will be my right mid, Gerrard will be my right centre mid, Chouameni will be my left centre mid, and then Mudrick will be my left mid. So you can see how that sets up in a 4-4-2 shape. Moving on to the fullbacks, guys, on your more attacking one, I do suggest balanced attack and overlap. This is so you can get extra width in the formation. This is very important with a formation like the 4-1-2-1-2 narrow, because sometimes you can be too narrow for your own good, and if your opponent's good at defending, they can pretty much shut out all of your attacks a lot of the time through the middle. So it is very useful to have this player going out wide to always give you that extra option and to help stretch your opponent's defense. Again, I cannot suggest this instruction enough. For the other fullback, I suggest stay back and overlap. This is so you always have at least 3 defenders back at a time, but when you send him on a run forward, he'll make the overlapping runs to add that extra width. As for the 2 centre backs, guys, and the goalkeeper, I leave them on the default settings, but if you want to put your keeper on comes for crosses, sweeper keeper, that is also fine. But yeah, they are my custom tactics and player instructions for the 4-1-2-1-2 narrow. If you have enjoyed or found this useful, please be sure to drop this a like. It does really, really help me out. Also, sub to the channel if you are new, and don't forget to turn on notifications. And with all that aside, guys, I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day, and I will catch you all in the next video. Peace out, guys. Love you lots.